Hello mathematical literacy learners, welcome to question 1 of Eastern Cape, June 2023. So I was asked to do these videos a little bit slower, so I'm going to need you guys to tell me if this is too slow enough, so I can try and find a middle ground, right? Let's get started. So here we're saying 200 grade 10 and 11 learners planned to go on a tour to Durban. This 6.5% less learners eventually went to Durban. So if I look at the statement here, it says here, just in the beginning, I'm having 200, and that is 200, and it's given in words, and therefore I must now know that that is 200. Okay, now grade 10 learners planned, so they are organizing a trip and they plan. 200 of them are planning. Now planning is not going, right? And 6.5% less means less than the number 200. And then learners eventually went to Durban. So how do you make 200 less? How do you get less from 200? By minusing. You're supposed to say 200 minus whatever, it will give you less than 200. If it had said 200 more and then it said 6.5% more, then we would say 200 plus, right? But that's not it. We are going to less than. We are going to find a number that is less than 200 by 6.5%. Now, here they said 6.5%, and they wrote it in words. So I'm just writing in numbers here, 6.5, right? Just to understand what that is, just in case they hadn't given me that, because they don't have to. And 6.5 is written as 6/1/2, right? So this is 6.5%. Then I'm just going to write it there. It's 6 plus half. So this is 6.5, right? So that's 6.5. What do I do next? I take the 1/2, I divide it on a calculator, and I should get 0.5. But we're just going to check 0.5, and then there's still a 6 there. So this is 6 and 0.5. And how do I make sure that I have the whole number? I'm going to say plus 6. What happened? 6 plus 0.5 is 6.5. Now we have our statement and we've studied it. Now answer the questions that follow. Now I like these type of questions that say there before the answer, study the information given and then answer the questions, because it reminds you that you don't skim through it, you don't scan through it, you have to study and understand what's happening here, and then you answer the questions. Okay, so 1.1.1. Write 6.5 as a simplified common fraction. So now I'm going to ask myself, what is the main thing that they want here? They want a fraction. So they want us to change 6.5% into a fraction, right? But then they say, okay, once you've changed it into a fraction, make sure that it is simplified and it's a common fraction. So let's go. 6.5% change. So I'm just going to write it, make sure it's right in front of me, and they want us to change this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remind myself, percentage can be written as a fraction. A fraction can be written as a decimal fraction, and a decimal fraction can be written as a percentage. So even if you have a decimal, you can change it into a percentage and then change it into a fraction, from percentage to fraction. So this is 6.5 over 100. So any percentage, even 50% is 50 out of 100, right? So this is 6.5 out of 100. So this is now a fraction. So now we're going to change it and make sure that it is a simplified common fraction. Right, so in this case, you can just go to your scientific calculator, press these numbers, and press 6.5. Then press a button that's like this on your scientific calculator, and then press 100. It'll give you the simplified answer. You're done. But if you don't, we first have to look at this number which has a comma, and we need to move the comma away. And the best way to do that is to say 6,5, and then we will start to multiply by 10. If the 10 doesn't work, we multiply by 100 until there's no comma and at all. Once you're done there, you go at the bottom, because whatever you do at the top, you do at the bottom. Whatever you do at the right. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to say 6,5 times 10, and that will be 65. And then we're going to over, we also have 100 here, so we have to also multiply that by 10. It will give us 65 out of 1,000. And now we can simplify. Now if I look at this number, I can see that it can be divided by 5. So if I say 65 divided by 5, there's no comma, it'll give me 13. And if I say 1,000 divided by 5, that'll give me 200. Struggling with simplifying, I do have videos on YouTube that do show you how to do this. So we're going to go to 1.1.2. Determine the number of learners who went on a tour. So we're going to, before we just go to the statement, I'm assuming at this point that there are learners who did go and then there are learners who didn't go. But I'm going to go back to the statement and find out. So the statement said 200 grade 10 and grade 11 learners planned to go. And then 6.5% of them did not go. So like I said, 200 were supposed to go, but then less than 200, less by 6.5% went there. Okay, so now to determine the number of learners who went, so now we want to know how many actually went there. Now, we're not told the percentage of those that went, we're told the percentage of those that did not go. So in order to find out how many actually did go, we need to find out how many did not go. I'm going to say 100% learners, which represents the 200, and then less by 6.5%, and then I get 93.5% learners went. Now 93.5% is not a number of learners, it's a percentage. So they said they want to know how many. They didn't say what is the percentage of the learners that went, what is the number of learners who went. So 200 did plan to go, and 93.5% actually went. There we go. So let's find out. 200 times 93.5 divided by 100, and we get 187 learners, and you are done. So I'm just going to do it in the second way. Let's find out how many learners did not go. Then it's 6.5% of them. So we're going to find that out. That is 13 learners. Right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to say 200 learners who planned to go less the 13, and then we're going to find that the number of learners that did go is equal to 187. Done. Express the number of learners who went on the tour and the number of learners who plan to go on a tour as a simplified ratio. So here we're told to express the number of learners. So we're going to use the number of learners who went on a tour. So those that did go, went means go, but like long time ago. And the number of learners who planned to go. So I already know, didn't they say there at the top? Yes, they did say there at the top that the ones that are planning to go, they are 200. So this one here is 200. Hey, what's my 200? So this one is the ones that plan to go is 200. And then we have the number of learners who went, as asked at the top there. I can recalculate it if I want, but I have to show all my calculations, or I can go get it from 1.1.2. Okay, so now the number of learners who went on a tour and the numbers of learners who planned to go on a tour as a simplified ratio. Okay, remember I said, ask yourself, what is the main question? So what exactly are they asking you? Because in one question, they can ask you to do 3-4 things, but there is a main question. And the main question is, write this as a ratio. Now, a ratio, what is a ratio? It is a number, dot, dot, and number. Now that we know they want us to write a ratio, what do they want us to use to do this ratio? The number of learners who went will go first because it was said first. And the number of learners who plan to go will go second because they stated it second. And then I'm going to simplify it in that order. Okay, so they want me to write a ratio, right? And they want me to use the number of learners that went, which was 187. I calculated it there. So I'm going to say 187 dot dot. Now remember I said you write it in the sequence they gave it to you. So they said number of learners who went, number of learners who planned. Make sure. Okay, so the ones who planned, it's given there in the statement, it's 200. So at this point, I'm hoping that you have tried this. So I tried to simplify this and I couldn't. It doesn't seem like you can simplify it. So we're going to move on. So on 1.1.4, it says, write down the probability as a percentage of randomly selecting learners who did not go on a tour. Again, remember I said, I'm just going to remind you for the last time. I said, always ask yourself, read the question twice, and then ask yourself, what is the main thing that they're asking? And then how do they want us to write it? Okay, so write down the probability of randomly selecting a learner who did not go on a tour. So in this question, they want us to write a probability. That's the main question. They're not saying calculate the percentage of. No, they're saying write down the probability. So what is probability? So the possible chances something might happen, and therefore we have a formula for that. So probability is equal to possible chances divided by a number, total number of chances, right? I'm just reminding you of the formula. Now I'm calculating probability here because the question said calculate probability. So what is the possible chances? Now they said they write down the probability of randomly selecting learners who did not go on a tour. So I want to find the possible chances that I'm looking for here are those who did not go on a tour, and there was 13 of them, right? And then I'm going to say out of how many, which will be the total chances, right? Which is they were 200. Now it says, now I've written the probability. This is the probability as a fraction. Remember, percentage can be written as a fraction, fraction can be written as a decimal, decimal can be written as a percentage. Okay, so now I have a fraction. I'm going to turn this into a decimal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 13 divided by 200. And then it's going to be 0.065. I did not finish answering the question. I'm just going to show you. The question says, write down the probability as a percentage, not as a decimal, but as a percentage. So it's a decimal right now. How can I turn it into a percentage? Multiply by 100, and it goes right there. I calculated this just to remind you of the possible chances over total number of chances, the formula of probability. And this is how we get to the answer. But as you can see, we didn't have to calculate it. We'd already had the probability as a percentage given on the statement, because the question said, what is the probability of finding a learner that did not go? And that is 6.5%. Okay, so we're going to do something new on this channel now. We're going to do a whole question together. I'm not going to break it up because I'm now used to filming questions. Okay, so we're going to move on to 1.2. David was born in February 1998 and Sam in March 1993. Their father shed 409,750 rands in the ratio of their ages before he died in 2023. Now, before we continue, I'm just going to show you how I can quickly read numbers easily. I look at the numbers from the right and I read them quickly from the right by saying that's 0, that's 50, that's 750, that's 9. So the first gap is 1,000, and then I say that's 9,750, 409. So I read them separately like that. So that's 409, and then I say that's 409 spaces 1,750. So the trick I do is I read numbers from the right to the left, and then I come back from the left and read the numbers. Okay, so another thing I see from the statement, see how I always study my statement. I don't just read and pass by. So David was born in 1998 and Sam in March 1993. So one is born in February and one is born in March. Okay, fine, 1990, different years. Their father shared this money in the ratio. Okay, so they're going to use a ratio of their ages. Now, do you know a ratio is number dot number? So where am I going to get these numbers? These numbers are going to come from their ages. But if you don't know what a ratio is, you're going to get very confused. But if you know what a ratio is, you make a little ratio and then you say, where is this number going to come from? And then say, oh, it says they're of their ages. Well, that's lovely. It's going to come from their ages. So we need to find out how old they are. It doesn't say from their date of birth. It doesn't say from their year of birth. It says age. So how old are they? It's not given there. We have to calculate. Before he died in 2023. So he died in 2023 and the money is going to be shared like that. So write down David and Sam's age in April. It says write down Sam's age and David's age, but it doesn't just say right there. It tells us what time are we at. So let's take a little bit of a time machine and go back to April 2023. If today is April 2023, how old is David? And if today is April 2023, how old is Sam? So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to look at their month of birth because we don't have date. I'm going to look at their month of birth and I'm going to say, has David's birthday passed? And I'm like, oh, okay, I don't have to worry about him being 6 months, 20 years and 6 months. No, I don't have to worry about that because the birthday has passed. Therefore, he's turned a new age, right? And also, has Sam's birthday passed? Yes, it's April. So January, February is gone. March is gone because we are in April. Okay. So now I can just go to the calculator and say in 2023 minus 1998 and I get 25. So I know that David is 25 and April 2023 minus 2023 minus 1993. Guys, tell me you know how to calculate your ages. So this one is 30. Now, if their birthdays hadn't passed yet, they'll be 24 and 29. But their birthdays have passed and therefore they've already turned 25 and 30. Okay, so now how do we answer that? Okay, so let's calculate the ages. So David will be 2023 is the year we're in, minus 1998, and that gives us 25. And then Sam it's 2023 minus 1993, and that gives us 30. Right? So what we're going to check now is their birthdays, and then we say, okay, their birthdays have passed, and therefore they've turned 23 and 25 and 30. If I'm going to remind you again, if their birthdays had not passed, then they would not be 25 and 30. They'll be 24 and 30, and maybe in some months if they care for that. But in this particular, they didn't care. Okay, so we're going to go to the next question. So the next question says, calculate the amount Sam and David will each receive. Okay. Calculate the amount. That word is very important. So the main question here is saying we must calculate the money Sam will receive and calculate the money David will receive. So what does each mean? Each means individually, one person at a time. What are they going to get, right? So we're going to go back to the statement. The statement says they share using a ratio of their ages. Reminder, a ratio is a number, dot, a number. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to write the ratio first. We're going to use a ratio, and therefore it's important to have the ratio in front of us. So 1.2.2, I'm going to write the ratio. It says here, David and Sam. They started with David and then wrote Sam as well. But in this case, it doesn't matter which one you start with, right? Okay, so because they started with David, we're also going to start with David and then end with Sam, which got 30. So, okay, David is going to get 25 parts, and Sam is going to get 30 parts, right? Out of how many parts? So we add the 2 and we get 55. So we know that the total amount is represented by 55 parts. David's money is represented by 25, and it's 30 parts, right? So now I'm just going to write it for convenience. David is going to get 25 out of 55 parts, right? And Sam is going to get 30 parts out of 55. And then now we're going to calculate how much each is going to get. So we say David is equal to, how much is it? 409,750. We multiplied for David, and we say 25 divided by 55. For Sam, we're going to say 409,750 multiplied by how many parts? 30 parts out of 55. The total amount is represented by 55 parts. David's money is represented by 25, and it's 30 parts, right? So now I'm just going to write it for convenience. David is going to get 25 out of 55 parts, right? And Sam is going to get 30 parts out of 55. And then now we're going to calculate how 409,750 multiplied by 25 out of 55. 186,250. And then we have Sam, who is going to get 409,750 multiplied by 30 out of 55. And that gives us, is just going to add David and Sam's amount. It should give me 409,750. Amanda bought 15 packets of 2.5 kilograms White Star Super Maize meal as a part of a gift for needy families. one 2.5 kilogram packets cost 38 rand and 99 cents, and then it says sale 38 rand and 99 cents, so we don't have to worry about that. So the important thing here is the 15 is in words. I'm just going to write there in numbers so that I don't forget. And this one, it's just one packet, so I don't need to worry about that. I just know that one packet is 38 rand and 99, but she bought 15. That means if she's paying for it, she's going to pay 38 times 38 rand and 99 cents times 15. Okay, so and another thing that I looked at here is this is the size of the packet. It says 1.3.1. I'm not going to write it, I'm just going to tell you. Write down the VAT acronym in full. They give us the acronym and they say write it in full. This is very, very, very careful of this question. If they're asking you what is VAT, so like define VAT in your understanding, what is VAT, and don't say, oh, value-added tax, because now you're not defining it. Okay, so in this question they were just saying it's VAT. What does VAT stand for? And that's why they say this acronym, write it in full. And then it stays value-added tax. And then we have 1.3.2, which says write down the amount. So they want money of VAT she paid on the above items. Now, before we answer this question, I want us to remember that VAT is 15%, and there are ways to calculate VAT. And when you are calculating VAT, you have to first check if your amount has VAT in it or if it doesn't. So is it VAT inclusive or is it VAT exclusive? Is VAT excluded on the amount or is VAT included on the amount? Now, let's answer this particular question. Maize meal is not charged VAT. And there are others. The one that I knew was brown bread. And I also knew fresh vegetables, but I didn't know the rest. Now I know. Okay, you live, you learn. Okay, so I'm going to give you the list on a screenshot. And then we're going to move on to one. So how would you answer this question, by the way? 1.3.2, you will say 0 rands. You write 0 rands, right? So there's no money. Be very careful with this because they say write the amount. But I think in this case, you could say that there's no VAT charged on there's no VAT charged on the maize meal, or just say it's 0 rated and you will get your 2 marks. But be very careful because they said that they want the amount, and the amount is 0 rands. 1.3.3. Calculate the total amount she paid for the above items. So, the question says we must calculate the total, right, in amounts. They didn't say how many. They said calculate the total of all of them. And how many is there? 15. So, one maize meal, 2.5 kilograms, is 38.99, but we don't have one, we have 15. So we're going to pay that 15 times, and therefore we're going to multiply it by 15 and get 584 rands and 85 cents. We end question 1 here.